Great to be back in Kansas City with men.
At an official Republican event, a protester confronts the U.S. Vice President about migrant children. He is quickly silenced and removed as the partisan crowd chants USA. It happened to Pence again just days later in Chicago. Same result. The heckler was shut down. Turns out there's more than one way to ambush a political foe. Opponents of the Trump agenda have begun targeting Republicans after hours, where they eat and even, yes, where they live. In tonight's Dispatch from Washington, Paul Hunter examines the shame offensive.
On a warm and sunny afternoon, not too far from the White House, it's a victory party of a kind.
Well, good afternoon, comrades. Good afternoon.
A planning session slash fundraiser slash recap of what those here would call a hugely successful month of June. The custom clothing gives you an idea of their politics. Their words are meant to motivate.
When we started this campaign, they said that you're too young, and we proved them wrong.
But it's their action that's caught the attention of America. At this Mexican restaurant in downtown Washington one night last month, an ad hoc demonstration. Caught, of course, on camera by those who were there.
How can you enjoy a Mexican dinner as you're deporting and imprisoning tens of thousands of people?
The woman at the table and the target of the crowd, Kirstjen Nielsen, Donald Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security.
Shame! Shame! Shame!
When one of us got a notification from a friend that, hey, Kirstjen Nielsen is having dinner at a Mexican restaurant, do you think you can get some people right there to protest this? We're like, yeah, we'll be there.
The day before the scene at the restaurant, Nielsen had defended Trump policies that led to the forced separation of migrant children from their parents.
Parents who entered illegally are, by definition, criminals.
The public shaming that followed has become a powerful tactic in the growing pushback against the current U.S. government.
Some people have been critical of us, like saying, oh, you know, this is despicable behavior. What about the other patrons at the restaurant? You ruined their dinner. They didn't care. I can tell you for a fact that they were supportive of what we were doing. 3 of them got up and stood with us and also yelled at Kirstjen Nielsen, and a bunch of them walked out with us to say, hey, that was great what you did. We also want to get more involved.
Indeed, in the age of Trump, it's become a thing.
I just wanted to urge you to resign.
The mom who berated Scott Pruitt, then Trump's head of the Environmental Protection Agency. He quit soon after.
Vote you out!
The crowd chanting at Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell as he left a Kentucky restaurant last weekend. The Red Hen restaurant in Virginia, where Trump's press secretary Sarah Sanders was tossed out for her politics, not caught on camera, though demonstrators were later keen to remind the world it happened here. Not to mention the Democratic Congresswoman who urged Americans to keep at it.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd.
Free the kids!
Oh, and back to Kirstjen Nielsen. After the scene at that restaurant, those still upset with Trump's policies on migrant families went to her home in D.C. with a loudspeaker, playing back the sounds of those migrant children crying for their parents.
It's definitely confrontational, and we're fine with that. What is extreme is what's going on at the border. What's extreme is, what the United States government is doing to migrant families.
The view of the group at the picnic, the Democratic Socialists of America, is simple. The times require forcefulness. Yes, they push pure politics, including an endorsement of rising Democratic star Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and they promote public service broadly.
I was raised on the principle that you aren't fit to lead if you first aren't prepared to serve.
But the shamings, both organized and by random Americans following suit, have captured the headlines. They've also brought criticism. Is it all the end of civility?
this country was founded in protest. Like, the revolutionaries, American revolutionaries, were not polite.
Activist Brandy Brooks also likens it to the fight for women's suffrage and civil rights in decades gone by.
So now we're having this conversation about civility as if the major way that we've seen social change throughout American history is by everyone just being super nice and not ruffling any feathers. That has never been true on any key social change in the United States. You have to have people who are willing to buck that system, and they will never be considered polite by the establishment. They will never be considered civil.
And if you think it's just demonstrations, consider the extreme anti-Trump messaging throughout the U.S. Capitol by other protesters equally angry about what's happening in this country. The fine print on that one: who would Jesus deport? Check the light posts, the street signs, basically any place you can stick something, and you'll find not just slogans, but messaging intentionally over the top in targeting Trump, even if not everyone approves. Say the Democratic Socialists of America, be it those stickers or their shamings.
That is the point of protest, is to create a confrontation moment where you can use that to highlight and to put pressure on elected officials or public officials to be accountable.
Emphasizing their view that if now's not the time for all this stuff, when is?
Good and morally righteous people need to stand up and say, we're not accepting this.
I think folks are realizing that it's time to go bold or go home.
In short, it's a means to an end, adding simply, so come join. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.